the future of design in each of the areas, just kind of briefly?
Future.
It's hard to say. It has evolved so much in such a short period of time. I mean, even the last 5-10 years. I don't know where it's heading, but we're constantly looking for new ways to reach audiences. So I'm not sure where it's taking us, but we're constantly. In fact, we've got a person on staff. That's all he does is sort of concentrate on emerging technologies and new ways to reach audiences. So we're just along for the ride, making sure that keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening out there and how people want to receive information. It's constantly changing. Twitter wasn't around 2 years ago. I mean,
Well, that's where I see, especially in like new media, there've been talk for probably 5 years now about blogging taking over websites. And up until probably the last year, I didn't see that actually going into my clientele. But in the last year or so, I've seen a big push anytime I'm doing a new website. I'm seeing people want the interactivity where their viewers can actually go in and comment, like a blog or like a forum. So I'm seeing a lot of that, which makes me feel like in the future it's going to be mainly, interaction and more up to date. Well, like the Twitter, that's really kind of that same kind of interactivity that is becoming more and more prevalent.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's going to be, from a marketing standpoint, it's going to be marketing that doesn't feel like marketing. It's marketing that solves solutions, makes your life better, helps you out, just feels integrated in what you're already doing as opposed to jamming something down your throat. I think technology is going to play a huge part of that because we're already involved in it and engaged in it, and it's kind of, we're going to be kind of more subtly, I think, weaving marketing and those sort of things into things that people are already doing and want to experience.
As for museums, I actually foresee them hopefully down the road integrating some of these other platforms into the design, extending the gallery space into new media, into a website, into a sort of culture that people can follow and not just experience in this 1 or 2 rooms and then leave and it's all over.
Yeah, and I think it's going to become more and more customized so that when you enter a space, that space changes, depending on who you are, what your interests are. We do a lot of trade shows, environmental things, and everyone walks around with a lanyard, and you'd walk into a booth, and it'll pick up who you are, what your interests are, and that environment will change depending on those topics. And I mean that's where it's heading. It's becoming more and more customizable to your audience.
Well, less about what we're saying. As marketers, it's more about what the clients are saying, which becomes even more of a challenge as a marketer because you need to make sure that you're kind of persuading them in what they're saying. But for instance, you even watch on CNN. Half of CNN anymore is what people every day what their news is and what their opinion on the news. Well, it's the same thing in marketing. So I think as our job, it's more, subtly sending a message so that you're getting the people to say what you're wanting them to say, so that you don't have a bad message coming out there. Do we answer people?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
And kind of carrying on that topic, with all the different Facebooks and the Twitters, how do you handle some of the negative commentary, say with the experiments in Toronto with the makeup products? What happens if somebody talks bad about a band on MySpace? How do you handle that feedback, and what do you do?
That's actually something I think clients are really struggling with. But as they open it up and say, give us your honest feedback, they have to deal with that feedback. So they have to make sure their products are delivering on and the experiences are delivering on it. But I think that's one of the things that they expose themselves to negative things. But I think we as consumers can appreciate a little bit of that honesty. We see that, okay, some people maybe didn't like a product as much as somebody else. Sephora, actually, they are so blatant. Are you familiar with Sephora, the high-end beauty store? But they actually have an app on your phone. While you're in the store shopping, you can actually pull up their app, sephora.m.com. How do I know that so easily? But and you can get reviews. So while you're in the store, you can go, do I like this? And you can pull up customers' reviews. So there may be lots of these reviews of what people are saying about the product you're about to buy in the store, but they wanted you to do that because they want you to have an honest opinion. And I think that a lot of that's where marketing's going. Let's be honest, let's be transparent, but we have to make sure we're giving you what you want, so you hopefully end up with what you
I
want.
find a lot with, in my music clients, I have, when something like happens big in the news, like with Tim McGraw, or, something happens at a concert or something like that, you instantly have the people going on the MySpace page or the Facebook page and commenting. And as it actually is kind of funny to me that so many people that the web user is thinking that this star is actually out there. They're actually reading all these things and commenting. But what I'm finding is there's almost a need in a lot of my clients that are using this type of thing to have staff that is always there editing. So if a comment comes on that is negative, they can either respond to it right away or get rid of it as fast as possible. So it's almost like I always try to tell a client, if they're wanting to do this type of a media, they need to be prepared to be on all the time and to constantly be checking the media or having somebody check the media in order to filter and to make sure that the comments that are getting out there are the appropriate comments.
My question is kind of for Brooke and Joel. You guys have your own companies. Could you kind of walk through the process of, I guess, when you decided you were ready to kind of go for it on your own? I guess how do you build and maintain clientele? And I mean anyone.
You go ahead.
Well, yeah, for me, how did I know I was ready? Like in my video, it started over a couple of beers. Usually really bad ideas happen over a couple of beers. You always think that, I could do that better, and you really get into it and you realize that it's much harder than you realize it would be. I wake up every morning, I'm not sure I'm ready to, lead a team of designers and own a company, but it's like when you have a baby, you're never really ready for it. You just kind of do it, and things happen. I was able to take a client with me when I began, which helped me tremendously kind of get going, and I just started adding clients to it. And the way we add clients is really through relationship marketing. We do great work for great people. They have a tendency to move on to other companies, and they call us up. There's a loyalty and a relationship there that we have with our clients.
I don't think it's for everybody, and that's one thing I always try to tell people, because I'll have young designers come up to me and say, because I'm freelance pretty much. I mean, I have my own company, but I am the sole staff at this point, and that's kind of the dream life, have be my own boss and do my own thing. But it's a lot of work. I started out as a designer working under somebody, but I was fortunate to have a role that gave me a lot of freedom to learn a lot of different sides of marketing. So then as I continued to grow, and my last job actually for a company was a creative director, which I was managing. So I was learning how to do things on my own, on the business side of it, being able to look at numbers and seeing how much time I should be using for this type of a project, and really being able to think of the business side of it and not just the design side of it. It's been about 2 years now that I've been on my own, and one of the reasons why I went on my own was not exactly for the freedom, because I found myself more creative in my own, doing my own thing. I was able to pick and choose who I wanted to work with and be able to specialize a little bit more, and that's why I started specializing in the music industry. So I think it can be a scary thing and it can be a dangerous thing, but I don't recommend for anyone to graduate from college and to go out on their own, because you have to have the backbone, you have to be able to do it, you have to know your industry and know how to gain clients and handle money and that type of stuff as well.
I would suggest though, if you feel like your end game is to own your own firm, while you're in school, take business classes. I wish I had done that while I was here. So it's sort of been trial by error, and 10 years of trying things, and some things work, some things don't. And then, getting experience working with other firms to see how they run their business.
And be aggressive. Put yourself in the meetings. My bosses always knew that I wanted to be in the client meeting, and I could also hold myself to a client and be professional, which that's a big deal too. You've got to be able to be the business side of your company, not just the creative, cool side.
Since I think it's interesting on Taylor Studios how you guys do everything from beginning to end, literally ideation to install. How long
It all depends on the size of the project and the budget. We have had, let's see here. For example, that Marshall Gold project with all the ground forms and the One Life cast figure. It was probably about a year, start to finish, and it was $600,000 to $700,000. Other projects, we're about to start on one for the National Great Blacks and Wax Museum out in Maryland, which we're excited about, should be fairly high profile. That one is a couple mil, and that is going to extend over a period of 2 years from design to complete install. So it varies quite a bit.
Hello.
Mary mentioned that Samantha had her master's in, I believe, drawing. Do any of you have continuing education? Like some of you are in like marketing. What would you recommend as further education? Or do you have just that?
I have a master's degree in the School of Hard Knocks.
Mary gives me a really hard time. I'm halfway through a master's program that I've put on hold for a couple of years. I think there's a side of the education that you have to do self-study. And I mean, I may not be in classes right now, but there's constantly a new book in my library that I have to be focusing on and learning every single thing. It is constant study all the time. So I think no matter if you go back to school or whether you don't, I think it's more self-study, I think, than school study.
Yeah, I just have my bachelor's in graphic design, but I think what I did was through my career, I found the person everywhere I worked that became my mentor. Like, they're so smart. I want to learn how they think about business. They're such a great designer. I want to think how they think about designer. And I think to me that was sort of, again, my learning process as I went through it and really gained, different perspectives on design. I think that's also good too. It's like working in different types of design, I think gives you such exposure to really create a richness in your knowledge.
Yeah, don't stop educating yourself. Read the magazines, get online, be out there, stay up to date on the trends, read the books. Everything you can do. It's learning doesn't stop when you're done school.
Yeah, I mentioned to the class yesterday, be a sponge. Learn from your creative directors or art directors. Let them be your mentors. We participate in the AIGA mentorship program, which is great. We've got a lot of young designers who come through, and we try to teach them about design and trends and where it's heading. And we're constantly learning. I mean, if it's not about design, it's about the categories we're working in. I didn't know anything about medical devices 2 years ago, but I've immersed myself in that business, and you have to become experts. Your client requires it. I have to know their business inside and out. So, for me, that's the best part of the job, is kind of learning new categories. The bike industry to surgical devices. That's the most fun, learning about those things.
It is strange, the weird things you have knowledge of after
I know.
working with lots of clients.
I
Right?
could actually-
How do I know that?
I've got a question stemming from that. What is the strangest project you guys have worked on?
I'm an expert at color concrete. I know everything about coloring concrete, from how to put it together, I could pretty much do it myself.
Yeah, I could perform gastric bypass surgery.
Great.
Yeah, some of the videos that we get are, gross, to put it lightly. I'm used to it now. It's kind of, I'm over it.
Mine would be when we were working on the Charmin brand for Procter & Gamble, and we were doing focus groups and had to ask people about toilet paper. That about went as well. Yeah.
I actually have.
Didn't want to know.
Someone on my staff worked on the Charmin account for Interbrand, and he told me, the stories.
Yeah.
The samples of.
Yeah.
You would imagine, like in plastic Ziploc bag. It's gross.
Glad
That's
to finish
funny.
that.
I also have video of a leg being amputated.
Nice.
It's kind of gross.
That's funny. The strangest exhibit I probably have ever worked on was a health and hygiene exhibit, where you walk past a giant pair of hands and a giant Kleenex, and achoo! As soon as it's motion sensor, it's really.
Nice.
But I think you have to be, I've seen in designers that have worked for me, the ones that have perfectionist type personality types are the ones that are going to end up really being good. And it's not, I don't think you can ever be perfect at design. I think that's part of it, in that you're constantly having to push yourself. You know, you want to know a little bit more, or you want to do just a little bit better. And I think that's the difference, I think.
I'm curious, what historical figures, design figures, or current graphic designers are you following, or who inspires you? Whether they're designers or artists,
For me,
architects, or whatever.
yeah, Joe Duffy in Minneapolis is someone who I look to for inspiration. Just phenomenal work, prolific.
I don't know that I have any one or two people. I'm inspired by everything every day, really. I mean, if it's an odd fabric pattern or something, it's like, oh, that's cool. I can, get an idea from that for texture or something. And I don't know that I can narrow it down to a person or two or a style or two.
I'm like you. Mine's more music. Now, music are who my clients are, but even looking at music that is similar or music that's complete opposite of what I'm working on, and kind of just focusing on the sound and the different electronic things that are put into it. And I think that's more of where, and what other musicians are doing visually is what I'm looking at, which a lot of my competition are people that you'll never know their names. They're the so-and-so at a music company.
I think it kind of like you guys, it kind of comes from everywhere. I think I admire, we talked about this yesterday, an agency like an IDEO who takes the perspective approach as an agency to the max. I mean, they have scientists on staff, they have psychologists on staff to solve design problems. And to me, I think that is inspiring, because I think that's where design is going. I think it will touch us in all those different ways, to science to how we think and believe and act.
I should also say I hate Joe Duffy for being so good. I'm very competitive, but I love design. I mean, I pour through design books and constantly online looking at other people's work. It just that inspires me.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything in all aspects of life. I am obsessed with music too, and all these dance shows on TV. I know it's ridiculous, but I see that stuff and I'm like, wow, that's really an amazing way to tell that story, through movement rather than.
It's funny, I think wherever you're at too, because I find I have 2 toddlers at home, and sometimes my toddlers are the most creative things in the world, and if they're having a really fun day of coloring, that's usually when I come up with my best design projects. I had one project for an artist, which I think that stuff's in the other room, an artist named Plum, and she's kind of grungy. She's been around for a long time, but she's got an edge to her look, and we spent the entire day throwing watercolor paints all over my kitchen. Not on my kitchen, but on paper, but a lot of it ended up in my kitchen. But watching my kids actually do that got some of the most creative looking paint splotches that looked cool on her MySpace page or her albums. And so sometimes it's the odd places that you find the creative inspiration instead of looking at a certain person or a certain designer.
I got a couple quotes that I keep on my wall at my office just to keep me kind of grounded and look at how things work. And one that I recently found was from Picasso. It says, "Every child is an artist. The problem is staying an artist as you grow up." Do you guys find yourself continuing to do things aside from your regular day-to-day jobs in your art field, whether it's painting or drawing or sculpture or anything like that? I think we have a really nice well-rounded program here, and it offers the students that that are in design to also take sculpture or pottery or other things like that. Do you find yourself bridging the gap and going off to things other than your digital media?
Yeah, I do. I still paint. Even if it's just something stupid like sewing a pillow. I have to have some other creative outlet than just design. So yeah, I do all the time.
I don't as much as I'd like to, just because, you're sort of on all day long, 10, 12 hours a day. It's hard for me to separate that and do something else in the sort of fine art category. I think the less I design, the more I creative direct and get off the board, the more I'll probably have to seek for that outlet. And I love that quote. In fact, we have it on our wall at the office. And that's kind of our philosophy. We have fun. I mean, we do things, like at Upshot. I mean, we as a team, we just go out and do stuff together, and we ask those guys to bring their personalities to the table. What do you guys like to do? If it's cooking, let's do a cooking thing together, or a wine tasting, or we'll go to Kings Island together and just kind of get out of the office and have fun. And we have a lot of fun. Sometimes it's hard to kind of rein them back in, but we try to do that stuff frequently.
I'm like you. There's tons that I'd love to get back into doing, a lot more fine arts. What I found that there's not enough time in the day, to be able, and I spend so much time doing art for my field that it's sometimes hard to find that extra, but you need to. And so where I found I don't have time, so I pick up my camera. I do a lot of photography because that's a quick way of getting a result. That you don't have to take, and I can take my camera with me anywhere instead of sitting down at a board and doing a pen and ink drawing. So, there's different ways, my goal for myself is in the next 5 years, finding more time to do more fine arts, because I know it's necessary and needed.
Mine would be, I think, interior design. I actually started out in more traditional marketing. I worked in advertising. Then I actually worked for a firm that just did retail design. And then I went to Upshot, and as you can see, that's one of the things we do. And that whole three-dimensional application of design I thought was fascinating. And it comes to life in my partner and I's condo, which now it's on its third look, I think, since I've lived there. Now I'm in a really dark kind of mid-century lounge phase. And then I have friends they say, hey, help me, I've moved into this new condo. To me, that's a great outlet for me, I think, and it really inspires, I think, the graphic design, seeing things in space and even thinking how you translate that back to one dimension. So.
Is there a piece of advice that you guys could give to the students, or even to the students who are finding an internship this coming summer, or even a job that they can keep in mind, or even inspiration to, keep in the back of their heads when they're thinking about what they're going to do?
So many pieces of advice.
Something that you wish you had when you started off that can kind of keep you going.
I think for me, one of the big things that I think have helped me along the way is I may be interviewing for something that isn't very exciting, but what can I make it? It's never settling for something. When I'm applying for a graphic design position, I actually want that art director position or the step up. I'm going for that. So you may be going into a certain role, but it's a matter of thinking 5 steps down the road. What can you do to get higher? What can you do to get bigger than this job? So I think if you do that, I think you move a lot faster. You don't stay in the same role forever.
Yeah, I think making the most of every opportunity. If your internship, the only one you can find, doesn't pay, take it. I think, if the first job you get isn't your ideal job, make it the job you want it to be, and then, do the things on the side. I think always, finding how you can make the most of the opportunities you have.
Yeah, and show your willingness to take on, a lot of work. Yeah. And when you're up, make sure your creative director knows you're up. I talked to the class yesterday. I've got people who come to me and say, I'm up, I need something to work on, and I have people who are up and they surf the internet. So show me your willingness to really dig in, work hard, push yourself, push your boundaries. If your digital experience is sort of lacking and you're really strong on the print side, show me that you're at least willing to learn and push yourself. And yet, absolutely if you can't get a paid internship, take an unpaid internship, because for us, that's the difference maker. Mm-hmm. When an entry-level designer comes to us,